Hey friends, thanks for stopping by. Today I'm going to do a quick video showing you all how I create these glitter background patches that are iron-on. Well, this one is iron-on. I haven't put the adhesive on the back of this one yet, but I will show you the process that I take to create the patches. Now the design themselves, the border I created using Embroidery Stitch Artist 3, and the fonts. The font for Georgia is a comic font from Designs by Juju, and the Atlanta font is a typewriter font, and I do not remember whose typewriter font it is because I just have my fonts loaded to Embroidery and it just says typewriter. So I'm going to show you how I create these, and stay tuned. Okay, so I have already hooped my water-soluble stabilizer, and this is the kind that looks like fabric. One brand that is carried by All Stitch is called Vilene, but there are other brands that have this as well. And then I am going to use my tackle twill that I get from Twill USA, and I'm going to use some Caesar HTV glitter. I am going to iron the glitter on top of this and then let it cool before I start stitching. So I'll go to the iron right quick, and I'm going to iron this in place. Now I don't really have a ironing board in here. This is my heat press, but I'm not going to mess it up. I have some butcher paper that I use. I get like a really big roll of it from Sam's Club, and it lasts forever. I think I've had this current roll since 2019 maybe. It's an old roll, but anyways, I am going to just place the glitter on top of the tackle twill, and I'm using this because I get the tackle twill that has the adhesive on the back just for projects that I'm not going to be using anything but the twill. I want to be able to just have the adhesive on it already, but they do carry the kind that does not have the adhesive on it, which is fine. And so I'm going to use a dry iron. I don't want to steam it, and I'm going to just iron this so that the glitter fuses to the twill. And I'm pretty sure that that is really good. It's hot. Definitely want to let it cool. And I always try to make sure that it cools now to where it's not sticky before I actually start stitching with it, because it will gum up your needles anyways, but it will gum it up even more when you don't let it cool. So that's just one thing I try to do now that I don't think that I did that very early on when I first started doing videos, but it's something I learned, so I'm passing it on to you. So we're going to go back to the table. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I am going to place my hoop on the machine, and I am going to stitch a placement stitch that will show me where I need to place this at. And I'm going to trim the bottom half of this off because I'm not going to need that much of the twill. And another thing, there are ways that you can cut the twill before you actually put it in here, but I have a video where I use the silhouette cutting the fabric or cutting the twill for the patches. And so I'm doing this as if you didn't have a cutting machine to pre-cut your shapes for you. So I'm going to do a placement stitch, then I'll place this on here, then I'll trim it, and you'll see how that goes. Okay, so we're going to place the hoop on the machine. And I already have the design uploaded, and I'm going to hit set so that it'll give me that option to trace. That way I'll be sure that it actually fits in there, but I've already stitched the Georgia one out, and I'm using the same border. I just switched the words out using Embroidery, and so that fits fine. Now I'm going to press start so that we can get a placement line and we'll know where this is going to go. Alrighty, so we've got the placement line, and now I'm going to hit that reset button over here on the screen, and I'm going to hit the scissors and hold it for 3 seconds, and that way it'll cut that thread that was hanging there. So we have our placement stitch there. I'm going to take the twill that has the glitter on it, and I am going to place this right over that box, being sure that all the areas that have glitter will cover that line. And so you can, if you want to, use a adhesive spray to hold it in place, but it is going to make your hoops a little messy. Or you could just hold it in place using a dial. Don't put your finger in there. But we'll go to the next step. We're going to hit start. It's going to give me a tack down, and then we'll be able to trim. And I'm only holding it down because sometimes the fabrics will shift, and I don't want it to shift too bad to where I won't be able to, you know, have it all in the glitter. Now I'm just gonna do the thread trim. We're gonna take this back to the table. We're gonna trim all around that red border, and we'll be ready for the next step. Okay, and remember, I did say that there are ways that you could use a vinyl cutter. I use these silhouettes, the silhouette cameos, to pre-trim, but I'm doing this as if, you know, somebody doesn't have a cutting machine. And these are just curved Fisker scissors. I got them at Walmart. And I'm just trying to trim as close as possible along that I was going to say that dotted line, along the tack down stitch. And I don't know if you can see that very well. See if I think this is, you know, that's all the camera will zoom. And I did just cut through that thread, but it'll be okay because it still has good hold as far as, you know, the rest of the patch is concerned. I'm just gonna trim around it as close as possible. And I do have this set up with a nice wide satin stitch for the border, but just in case, I like to get it as close as possible to the tack down. Okay, so this is what we're looking like now, and we're going to take it back to the embroidery machine and do the finishing of it. Okay, I'm going to put this on the machine, make sure it's in place. We're going to hit start and let it stitch on out. And it's stitching the box or the border first, so that way when it starts stitching the words, I don't have to worry about the patch actually shifting. I have found that sometimes if I set my patch up to where it stitched the wording or the content of the center of the patch out first, then I would end up with a slightly off-centered patch because stitching the inside for some reason causes it to shift. I don't know if that is a known thing to happen or if it's just a Sean thing. It might just be something that happens with me. I don't know. We'll call it the Sean phenomenon. But now it's giving the thicker satin border all the way around. And once it stitches the satin border, it's going to give a bean stitch or do a bean stitch all the way around. And so I'm just going to let it go ahead and stitch, and I'll check back. And that is how it's looking. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take it off of the hoop. I am going to trim the stabilizer off of it, and then I'm going to rinse it so that we could get all the excess stabilizer off of it before I put the heat applied adhesive on it. Okay, so I've got it all rinsed off and set it in front of the fan. Now, this is where it ended, the design tie off, where you see a little bit of that fuzzy thread there at on the side. So I'm just going to hit that with a lighter. That polyester thread will melt right down and make it nice and smooth. What I'll do now is I've got some heat applied adhesive that I also get from Twill USA. I don't have an affiliate with them, but I will leave the links and info in the description box for you. And let's see here. That is a little bit bigger than I need, but what I'll do now is I'm going to place this upside down butcher paper underneath it so that it's not making a mess anywhere. And I'm going to just iron it down with the iron until it melts so that it will be adhered to the back of it. Alrighty, so we are at the iron. This is the butcher paper. I'm going to take the patch and place it face down. I'm going to take my heat applied adhesive and place it on the back of the patch. I'm going to use a dry iron and slowly press. And I press for a few seconds just to make sure that it is good and melted. And it does end up pressing to the butcher paper, but that is fine because we're going to take all of that off anyways. And it sounds like it's steaming. Steam is supposed to be off, but there was still steam coming out. Next time I'll empty the iron just to be sure it's dry. So now I've got this ironed in place. Well, it's ironed. And I'm going to let it cool off and then I'll get it cleaned up so that it'll be ready to go. Alrighty, so it's cooled off, and what I'll do now is I'm going to just take some scissors and trim close so I can start peeling it away. Now we're looking at the back side of the patch here. And you can see the adhesive did melt. And it's not completely cold, but it's cool enough for me to work with. Okay, so that's just the bulk of it. And so what I do now is I'm going to take and remove the butcher paper and throw that away. And so now we have our patch, and we'll just trim really close but not into the threads, okay? And so for that, I'll get one of these smaller pairs of sewing scissors and just trim it really close. Alrighty, we did it without cutting any of the threads, and so this essentially is finished. And when you peel the back off, you'll have that shiny adhesive that it will melt onto, you know, whenever you're ready to press it onto something. Now, I do always tell people who buy these patches from me, if you're going to be putting this on something that's going to be washed, I always recommend doing a tack down stitch along the edge just to make sure that, you know, the washing doesn't wear the glue down or the adhesive down and end up having the patch fall off or be lost. Now, if it's going to be going on a hat, it shouldn't be a problem. But I have had some customers tell me that instead of pressing, they just glue it down, and it works fine to be glued down as well. So that is it. You all tell me what you think. You up to trying some glittered patches with your machine? I don't know, but that is all I have for you. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments and I will definitely try to answer them. Until next time, you all take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.